Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Jess, and today I'm going to show you how I refinished this maple dresser for a client. Kept it super classic, very authentic to the original piece. We didn't modify anything structurally. We kept the poles original, and I really love how it turned out. Before we get started, I kindly ask that you hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. There's something so special about taking an old piece of furniture and giving it a fresh look while still keeping its original charm, which is the exact goal of today's project. This is a commissioned piece, and the client's request was a crisp white paint for the body and a natural stain top with the original drawer pulls. I'm going to start by removing the old hardware. She really wants to keep these and just polish them up. I particularly like the Chippendale style pulls. I know they're not for everyone with their bat kind of look. And I'm going to tape the inside parts of the holes just so no paint seeps inside the interior of the drawers. Next, we'll move to cleaning and prepping the entire piece. Before you even think about picking up a brush or diving into your first coat of paint, proper prep work is non-negotiable if you want your wood furniture makeover to last for years. And I just make my way across the entire piece, removing all of the hardware, vacuuming out any areas necessary like the inside of the drawers and the drawer pockets, and then wiping everything down with crud cutter and a microfiber cloth. And we just keep repeating that process, removing the hardware, vacuuming out the drawer pockets and the inside of each drawer, and then wiping down all the surfaces with crud cutter and a microfiber cloth. Trying to remember as I go not to miss any hardware holes that I want to tape off, again, so paint can't seep into them later. Next, I'm going to be taping off the sides of my drawers. I'm going to be using Scotch pre-taped plastic. This stuff is fantastic, super convenient because it folds out to 2 feet, which is just about perfect for these drawers. This was really nice to prevent overspray along the side of the drawer and keep everything looking nice and clean. I kind of go back and forth if I spray drawers with them sitting inside their drawer pockets versus if I prop them up and spray them separately from the body of the dresser. But I just like to give myself the option either way and just go ahead and tape them off from the beginning. It will make it a lot easier to spray the drawers inside the body if you're dealing with a type of furniture that is an inset. Overlay gets a little bit more complicated because you can't really get to the body of the dresser itself, which I can show you a little bit later. And I just use pre-taped painter's plastic and I wrap it up like a little present. As we're moving along here, I'm just finding a few repairs. This piece really didn't have that many repairs required other than a loose drawer track on this bottom drawer. So I'm just tacking it down with a little bit of tight bond wood glue and clamping it, and I'll let that sit for 24 hours. And the inside of the drawer pocket was a little loose as well, as you can see here. And I did the same technique there, just tacking it down with a little bit of wood glue. And then I actually put the drawer back inside the pocket just to make sure it was aligned right where it needed to be, and the weight of the drawer will help that wood glue adhere. We'll continue the process of prepping, next moving to the top of the dresser. I'm going to be using this tool called a carbide scraper. It's a fantastic tool that really will cut back on sanding time because it helps remove a lot of the old finish, as you can see. This thing is pretty powerful, so I only use it on solid wood pieces, never pieces covered with veneer, because you will just rip that veneer right off. But this is just getting me one step closer to a natural, cooler, lighter top that my client requested. After removing a good amount of the old finish with the carbide scraper, I'm moving on to sanding with my Surf Prep sander. I started with 80 grit and moved to 120 grit and then 220 grit for a super smooth finish and to eliminate any swirl marks. Next, I'm moving on to scuff sanding the body of the dresser. Scuff sanding just means to rough up the original shiny smooth surface, and this gives it a little bit of tooth so your primer and paint will adhere in the upcoming steps. The goal for scuff sanding is not to fully remove the old finish like we did on the top. I generally use a 220 grit for this step. Now I'm placing all the drawers back into the body of the dresser before scuff sanding the drawer fronts. I mainly do this because I work in such a tight garage space, and this is just a really easy space saving trick. You'll notice the top middle drawer has some details that may be tricky to sand with just a regular flat sander. Luckily for me, Surf Prep has these nice foam pad attachments, which I use for getting into the grooves of the wheel-shaped design. These specialty foam pads are also great for the routed edges of the drawer fronts. We're just going to pretend like it's been 24 hours and my wood glue is solidified here. It's probably only been several hours, but I'm going to go ahead and replace that drawer where I glued down the drawer slide and scuff sand this last drawer before moving on to our next step. Once everything was scuff sanded, we're going to be moving on to primer. I personally love this Kills Restoration Primer. It performs like a shellac, which is pretty essential when painting with light colors to avoid any bleed through, but it cleans up like a water-based primer. I aim to water it down about to the consistency of a polyurethane, about 10 to 20%, but I'll be honest, I don't always measure. For this entire project, I'm going to be using my HomeRite Super Finish Max. This is a fantastic beginner-friendly HVLP sprayer that just plugs in and runs about $100. Before spraying, I'm just wiping down with a water denatured alcohol combo, 50-50 mix, and a clean microfiber rag. As for the drawer divider frames, I just rolled on primer using a foam roller. After getting everything primed and allowing that to dry, I went back and filled any imperfections with Bondo glazing putty. I like to apply this with a flexible putty knife, and I just press it into the areas of imperfection. This stuff sets in about 15 minutes, and then you can sand it down. I like to use a 220 grit paper for this. Next, I'm just looking over the piece and finding any other imperfections in need of filling or any other splatter marks from the first round of primer. For any little splatter mark, I like to use a flat razor blade to remove the little bump and then sand that down smooth with 220 grit. If you have a lot of areas filled, you may consider doing a second coat of primer to cover up the red coloring of the Bondo, but mine were pretty minimal, so I went ahead and moved on to painting. I'm using Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel in the color Snow Owl. This is a true crisp white. Before spraying anything through my sprayer, it's important to filter to remove any clumps that might gunk it up or cause a little splatter. I then water the paint down a little bit. I don't have a perfect system for this, but I usually aim for about 3 tablespoons of water for every 8 ounces of paint. It really depends on the paint's viscosity, but you want it nice and smooth, but not too watery, but not too thick. But here you can see the importance of straining your paint before you spray. I make sure the paint and the water is mixed up thoroughly before loading up my sprayer and getting to the fun part, paint. Personally, I like to spray with the drawers inside the drawer pockets for a few reasons. One, it's space saving if you're working in a small, tight space. And two, I don't have to worry about knocking the drawers over when moving around my workspace as they dry. Before spraying, you probably know the drill by now, I wipe down with 50/50 water denatured alcohol combo for a clean surface for my paint. I realize spraying white on white isn't very satisfying to watch, unfortunately, but here I'll show you how I managed to spray with the drawers inside the dresser. I have the drawers pulled out to start so I can spray the edges first, and then I inch each drawer in, touching only the center where there is not paint yet, so I can spray the edge of the next drawer. After all of the edges are sprayed, I spray normally, coating the entire dresser. The stuff dries pretty quick, so once the drawers are dry, I move on to ensuring the body of the dresser has good paint coverage. We may have a little bit of coverage from the spray, but probably not fully. So I start by sanding with 220 grit, just to give myself a nice clean surface before a second coat of paint, and repeat the razor blade process for any little splatter marks, and sand those down smooth with 220. And then I'll wipe it down with 50/50 denatured alcohol. Again, we sand, we wipe down before moving on to the next step. You know the drill by now. I then use a foam brush to paint just the body. You can use a regular paintbrush too. You would use a foam brush just as you would a normal paintbrush. I just particularly love the size of the 1.5 inch. It's perfect for these rails. And with this particular paint, when painting it by hand, you just want to make sure you don't overwork it. Just lay it down and leave it alone. Once the body is dry, I load the drawers back in for a second coat, repeating the whole process. Sanding with 220, wiping down with 50/50 denatured alcohol combo, and repeating this for each drawer as I put them each back in. I know this is a lot of moving drawers in and out, but for me personally, I just prefer to spray with them in the dresser because it saves so much space and I don't have to worry about knocking it over. But if you prefer to spray with them outside and you have all the room in the world to do that, you could save yourself some steps, putting these drawers in and taking them out and putting them in again. It's all personal preference. And here I'm going to be applying the second coat of paint, starting with the drawer edges. I have them stacked in a step fashion so I can access each drawer top before moving on to spraying the dresser just normally. And I know this seems like a lot of repetitive steps, and it's because it is. And watching white on white on white is not very satisfying, but I'm showing all these steps because it truly is essential if you want a really high quality finish that's going to withstand the test of time. If you want a rapid fire, super satisfying refinishing video, you can find those all over TikTok, but I promise you they're not going to last. And as my last coat of paint is on and drying, we're going to be moving to the top. working on some staining. Today I'm going to be playing around with Lily Moon's Smoky Gel Stains. So I started by removing the papered top of this. Some areas were a little tricky because that paint really stuck to the tape, but once I got all of the tape off, I gave it a light sand with a 220 grit and wiped it down to ensure no dust with a microfiber cloth and 50/50 water denatured alcohol. I gave it a nice generous coat of water with my mister bottle, kind of as a skim coat, and I'm going on first with the wooden barrel and next with the natural cork. I'm just kind of winging it here, but if I was trying to instruct someone, I would say layer on your stripes every 4 inches or so, alternating the two. I'm using a moist blue sponge here to just rub it all over, being sure to go in the direction of the grain. And I think it turned out pretty well. I might go over it one more time with the wooden barrel to darken it a bit, but so far I'm really liking this product. Next, we're going to be top coating just the top. Thankfully, Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel doesn't require any top coat. I'm just using a water-based satin poly here, straining it first before running it through my sprayer. And I applied 3 coats of the satin poly, sanding between each one, you know the drill. Sand with 220 after it's dry, wipe it down with water denatured alcohol, and then spray your next coat. And I repeated that process 3 times for maximum durability. While my top coat's drying, between coats, I went back with a detailed brush and touched up any areas where the tape may have pulled off a little bit of the paint when I removed the paper on top, or where the tape slightly overlapped the body of the dresser a little too much. Once everything was dry, I removed the painter's plastic from the drawers, and it's really starting to come together at this point. You can see the painter's plastic did a nice job of preventing any overspray on the drawers. There was a tiny bit of overspray on the body within the drawer pockets, however. I just went back and sanded using this handy little mini sander and 220 grit paper. Next, we're going to be polishing up the old hardware. I'm using fine steel wool and Barkeeper's Friend for this step. I just squirt on a little bit of Barkeeper's Friend solution and scrub until I'm satisfied with the look. Check out this before and after. Pretty impressive, huh? Once all of the hardware was polished up, I just went back and attached them to the drawers of the dresser, and I love this part. I feel like I'm putting jewelry on my almost finished project. Here's a quick reminder of where we started. And here is the after. If you recall the client's request, she asked for a crisp white body, which I think we nailed, and a cooler, restained top that has a little bit more of a modern look. I really love how this project turned out. We didn't make any structural changes. We just polished up the original hardware, which I particularly like the bat poles. I know they're not for everybody, but I just think it looks so timeless and classic, but still gave it a fresh new look. And most importantly, my client loved it. If you're interested in a bonus episode about the matching mirror to this dresser that I refinished at a later date, you'll have to check back later. I made a separate short video on that as well. If you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.